silence, faith, and life.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Oh, I think Aurora was trying to be affectionate. I think darling Aurora wants to give her Motty kisses, but her Motty is going to say no kisses today. No kisses, Aurora, none. I'm going to start off with a teensy-weensy update about something rather tragic. Then I'm going to plunge in with things that are both more hopeful and more contentious. The autopsies of the people who lost their lives in the Bayesian tragedy the results have been released, and several of them died not of drowning. It doesn't say that they drowned. It said that they died of suffocation, which suggests that they did not die of drowning and that they were seeking shelter in air pockets. And when the oxygen ran out, they then drifted off into an alternative universe, let's put it that way, which I suppose means that although they would have been pretty terrified, wondering if they were ever going to be rescued, at least they would have died of oxygen deprivation, and therefore they most likely drifted off into unconsciousness before the end. So, of course, they wouldn't have all drifted off at the same time. I doubt, but it's possible. But barring a miracle, they can't have all actually died at exactly the same time, but they might have more or less lost consciousness pretty much at the same time. Very sad, very sad. And it just goes to show that's the second boat that was unsinkable and it sank. The first was the Titanic. Man needs to understand his unimportance in the scheme of things. I think there are all sorts of life and philosophical lessons to be learned from this tragedy. Of course, my heart goes out to all those who remain, and I'm glad to see that there is not a general feeling of baying for blood, that people want to find out what happened and why it happened. And I will wrap this up by saying the indications are that the vents that facilitated the air conditioning is what let in the water. So it's possible that the crew were not at all negligent. It's just a very unfortunate tragedy. And on that note, we will move on to something more contentious and then move on to something more elevating. Cato says, "Oh dear, the Heritage Foundation are not happy about the visa application case being shut down. You did mention previously that this might happen. What do you think is the significance of this action taken by the judge?" I think it is a courtesy from the judicial system of one ally to the head of state of another. I'm not a fortune teller, but it was always obvious that the possibility existed that there would be massive face saving, not even necessarily where the Americans were concerned, but where their main Western ally, the British, would be concerned. I'm going to tell you the reality of the situation as it has always appeared to me to be. And I have some information that leads me to believe that my conclusion is not, shall we say, an overreach. I think I have actually mentioned this before as well. The United States of America's laws, Uncle Sam, has the right of inquiry where any resident or citizen's tax statements and financial instruments are concerned. I think I might have mentioned this before, that when my mother was dying, the bank in Cayman, where she had the lion's share of her money, refused to have either of my sisters as signatories on the account, and she was no longer capable of dealing with her own affairs because they were American citizens. And the banks in Cayman and in many other countries will not deal with an American citizen or an American resident, because to do so means that Uncle Sam can then inquire into that client's financial affairs. And it opens up all sorts of avenues for Uncle Sam to then shoot down as he mops up evidence that can be used against other people who are neither residents nor citizens of the United States of America. Now, Harry, being a member of the British royal family, his financial affairs have links to the rest of the royal family. If Uncle Sam has the right to poke its nose into his affairs, they then take the right to poke into the rest of the royal family's affairs. This is totally unacceptable to any foreign state or power or any foreign royal family. Therefore, whatever Harry's status in the United States of America is, I think I have covered this before, it has to be predicated upon the fact that Uncle Sam has no right whatsoever to go beyond Harry's immediate affairs. Uncle Sam isn't going to be waiving its rights for the American State Department or the British royal family. So obviously, Harry's status is a special status. Harry cannot be an ordinary American resident and or citizen. Otherwise, it is inviting invasion. Harry becomes a Trojan horse, which would be a violation of the British royal family's rights. I hope that at least provides some clarity. And I will, since there's been a lot of interest in this, I'm going to read out another question on the subject. Julia Getman says, Dear Lady C, do your bongo bongo drums give you context for the reason the Heritage Foundation's case has been ruled on under seal on the 9th of September? It looks like the public won't get an answer about what was in that visa application. Was justice served? Was it inevitable that yet again Harry gets away with it? Harry, being a member of the royal family, and I'm pretty sure I've covered this previously as well, would fall under the A1 category or subcategory, whereby he would be accorded the right to stay in the United States of America under certain conditions that would prevent the Uncle Sam from having full access to the British royal family's financial affairs. There has been a sealed ruling by Judge Carl Nichols, and the result of the ruling and whether it is in favour of the Heritage Foundation or not has not been made public and might never be made public. It was done with an ex parte order. An ex parte order is something that is used by one side, and it is nobody is given forewarning as to what is coming. It is just done. It's a standard thing under English common law, which also is the basis for the United States of America's law. You know, none of this surprises me, because it was always obvious that Harry, being a special case as the grandson, then son of the British head of state, is a special case and would be treated as such. Depending on his status, I think I've covered this as well. He doesn't actually have to make a proper visa application the way the average citizen, foreigner, has to make. It is handled at state level. It's been a good try on. It certainly has been worth the Heritage Foundation's while to find out what they could, whether Harry did indeed lie. But as I've said all along, irrespective of whatever political party is in power, they are going to accord a degree of flexibility and privilege to the son and or the grandson of their main ally. This is called the realities of life. So, let us see, though, in a week or two, what is announced, if anything? It has been an unusual case. Harry's situation is unusual, but he is not the only member of a reigning royal family who has lived in the United States of America. Princess Madeleine of Sweden is another one, married to an American citizen. Very similar circumstances. I hope that clears up, to an extent, what has most likely happened and the basis upon which it has happened. Lint Bunny says, I got a few negative comments from others simply because I stated that although I liked the video and was very happy to see that Catherine is well and truly on the mend, that it felt a little contrived in a spot or two. I think Catherine's face as William leans in over Catherine on the sand summed me up during that scene as well. I felt like I was crying, as we've never seen a video quite as personal as this. These PDAs are something I'm not really used to. Still, it's a very well-made video, and I'm very happy to see her looking so well. And just for fun, I've seen it with the theme from Succession playing over it, and it's really quite good. There's been a lot of kickback because one or two people said that they felt a bit uncomfortable. And I tried to explain in the last video why they felt uncomfortable. And, I happened to like the video. I understood the rationale for the video. But that doesn't mean that although I agreed with all the contents of the video, that one or two bits didn't give me pause for thought, and one or two bits didn't sit as well as the video generally, but I understood why it was made. There have been lots and lots, persistent lots of information, starting from Meghan and Harry's visit to Amsterdam for the opening of Soho House, regarding the state of William and Catherine's marriage, and implying that Harry and Meghan would be far better to be king and queen than William and Catherine, because Harry and Meghan's marriage is Romeo and Juliet, Abelard and Eloise, Mud and Jeff, armpit and deodorant, Psyche and Trim, Batty and Bench. Well, there were all sorts of aspersions, all, I have to tell you, unjustly done as to the true state of William and Catherine's marriage. These have persisted. During Catherine's absence from public life, there were tremendously vitriolic things said about her and about the state of their marriage. So, of course, they are going to take the opportunity to kill several birds with one stone, to use a figure of speech, including making it apparent that the news from the United States of America, and I'm not going to particularize which state, although I have to say California does have wonderful weather. Naughty me. I'm being mischievous. But the fact of the matter is, most of these stories have emanated from the United States of America, from people who are supporters of people who live in Montecito, which has been a continuum from that rather disgusting rumour which started at the opening of Soho House all those years ago. So of course they're going to give us a glimpse that I don't think any of it is artificial, incidentally, but I don't think they would have given us some of the more personal and almost intrusive glimpses of shows of affection between William and Catherine, had William and Catherine not been aware of the fact that this was an ideal time to hopefully, I actually think it's a false hope, put those rumours to rest. So people are reacting to an unusual video in unusual circumstances that is addressing a series of unusual needs to be addressed. So I think, in fairness to people who were not totally comfortable with all of the content, but still like the video, that we shouldn't pile in on them, because just because we liked it doesn't mean that they didn't have the right to have feelings of discomfort. Because I wouldn't be surprised if in ordinary circumstances William and Catherine wouldn't have shared their sentiments. Let me put it that way. Nicole A. says, I feel like William and Catherine walk the fine line perfectly. They don't overshare and they keep their privacy, but allow us to share in the beauty of their lives. Philip was the first to crack the door open on the splendour by televising the coronation. That's Prince Philip, who pushed for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation to be televised, with the idea of inspiration and history. Yes, he did. Diana and Charles continued the fantasy, but they both disclosed too much. People were ultimately fascinated with Diana because she was so beautiful, but she let too much press, and the word in is missing, and we saw how she was harassed and the impact on the kids and the British royal family. So William and Catherine know we want the fantasy. They, like Diana, are so beautiful. We want the glimpses to share in their lives, not to be lectured to or have their wealth shoved in our faces, but the ideal and the relatability. I think they truly understand the assignment, and I'm here for it. And I agree with that. I think Nicole A. has hit the nail on the head. And I love when comments like this come in, because you make such good points that you deserve to have your points made, not through my mouth, but through your own mouth. I think they have their finger very neatly on the pulse, and I think they did it with various considerations in mind, with the right touch. The Bobblehead Diaries, headed no, head, diaries. Sorry, it's all in one word. It can be very confusing. The video looks like vacation footage that was edited into a wonderful video. Nothing at all wrong with it. I think you might be onto something, but it was certainly shot with the idea that it was going to be a representative of the reality of their lives in a holiday mode. And Grant Hayton Menzies, who's a very good writer, says, as a cancer survivor myself, I was especially moved by the atmosphere as well as the message of Catherine's video announcement. We who have had cancer have to come to terms with the fact that any cancer-free statement by a doctor is typically given with more informed hope than hard certainty. As Catherine states in the video, she has a long road ahead of her, first of all in terms of recovery, and second in terms of facing whatever the future may bring, which we survivors never know completely. The vulnerability exposed in the announcement was touching all the more for being so real. There was no Hollywood about any of it. And yes, Lady C, Catherine's superb artistic eye makes every moment of the video a feast to watch as well as a feast for the heart. She is a great woman and has the makings of a great queen. God save her. And this is the rub. Because Catherine's video was also intended to reach cancer victims and cancer survivors and those who will develop cancer, and to share her experience with them and to be a symbol of hope and knowledge, all of which she has succeeded in doing in that short video. And I have had a multitude of comments about how wonderful it is that where other cancer survivors are concerned, or people with cancer living with it, that she has done this video. It is without being invasive of her privacy and without being intrusive of her privacy or intruding upon other cancer victims. She has shown them that there can be light at the end of the tunnel, but she has also been realistic enough in showing them that just because she's cancer-free now doesn't mean she's going to be cancer-free in 3 months, 3 years. And also she is showing them that cancer affects the whole family. But you can cope with it in such a way that it strengthens the bonds that bind the family together. I think it was really beautifully done, and I am all in favor of the whole of the video. And I also will go harken back to the fact that people who had reservations about the deeply personal nature of some of it, not the cancer part, but the affection part, should not be pilloried for having had their reservations. Sorry, in ordinary circumstances, those are reservations that people who understand the way William and Catherine function, the dignity with which they function, the reserve with which they function, would find acceptable. So, Julia Getman says, "My dear Lady C, some voices are saying we may never get the full exposure comeuppance that some wish to see of Harry and Meghan, as in lies revealed with facts to back up. For two reasons. One, sorry, King Charles would be worried about how it would affect Harry. And two, the press do not expose Meghan because even if people engage negatively to the news of their various antics, she is a money-making machine narrative for them. Exposure would end the gravy train for mainstream media. Do you agree with this view?" I do. I agree with it. I think there's also another dimension to it, which I might get to in a moment, but let me answer this first. The king, like all parents with damaged, fragile, mentally affected children, is not going to do anything to drive him over the edge. Now, I made it clear in my first Meghan and Harry the Real storybook, and I think it's repeated in the updated version, which is Victims and Persecutors, or Persecutors or Victims, that the royal family's concern all along was that if the relationship with Meghan did not work out, that Harry could do something permanently irrevocable. Let's put it like that, because this is YouTube. It certainly would increase the odds if all band-aids were torn off any wound. Let's put it that way. And yes, Meghan and Harry, I don't think Harry on his own would actually be quite a money spinner. I was going to say I didn't think he would be, but he would be. Because if he and Meghan part, there's going to be lots of interest in who's he taking out, is he going to get married again, blah, 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 blah. So that's a money spinner, and Meghan is a money spinner. And she's going to remain a money spinner, whether she is with Harry or without Harry. And because she wants to be a money spinner, she lusts after attention in a way that a very few other public figures have done quite so flagrantly. Elizabeth Taylor was one. Diana was another. And Meghan is right up there with them. She might even be worse than either of them were. But there is another aspect to it as well. You have been duped, and you reveal that you have been duped. It opens up a can of worms that can actually end up wriggling into the core of your being and affecting it detrimentally. So there are sound reasons there as well. And there's another issue involved. A royal family is a state institution. A royal family that is a constitutional monarchy is obliged to respect the law and respect various protocols and not behave in certain ways, even when people want them to be punitive. They have duties to the institution, the preservation of the institution, which means that not every saw is displayed for the delectation of the public. I mean, let me put it this way. Each of us understands that there are times that, let me actually make it very personal and graphic. There are certain things that happen that would be the equivalent of any of us having diarrhea and getting caught out before we manage to reach the loo. Would we want that to be broadcast? Would we want photographs taken of us? Would we want the scent bottled and published and sold? I don't think so. This would be the equivalent. Patricia Francis says, just like our Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg, I'm positive the king is receiving treatments that the average person would not have access to. Ginsburg had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and lived for years. My family has a strong history of this cancer. Plus, I've spent my entire adult life in healthcare, and there is no way in hell she received the routine standard of care. I agree with you on cancer rocking people to their core. It hits like an atomic bomb, and it takes months to go through the mental challenges. It doesn't only take months. I know from my experience with my brother when he was dying. 30 years later, I not only grieve for him, but I have tender areas because of the roller coaster of hope, then expectation, and the knocks that I got as a result of being with him for the whole time. And I'm going to say, I do know where the king is being treated, and I do know what some of the treatment is. I will not say what it is. I'm not going to say I can't, because I could if I was low, but I'm not low, and I'm not going to say what I know. He wouldn't want it. And I don't think anybody should disrespect his views in terms of his privacy. He has been very open to the extent that dignity allows. And I'll go back to my analogy, wrapping up the last question. There are certain times when certain things happen to us through illness where really we are not prepared to broadcast them and don't want to. And in terms of his treatment, I think he's absolutely right. Yes, he is getting the very best treatment, but he's not the only person who's getting it, because I know the institution where he's getting it. And it is the best. It's very finely tuned. It's well targeted. And whether he is ever cured or not, there is the optimism that he could live with it, whether he lives with it or without it, that the time scale is, shall we say, generous, and he can live out a life of genuine longevity. Will it get him in the end? Nobody knows that. But there are people who have lived with cancer for several years who have ended up dying of something else. Loads of people. He could be one of them. That's my hope. And yes, he is getting the finest treatment, as one would expect he would. I am assured by members of the medical profession that the treatments available nowadays are superb compared to what they were a few years ago. Precision in a way that it didn't exist some years ago, certainly not when my brother was being treated. And I have a great deal of empathy as well as sympathy for both the King and the Princess of Wales, because I've been through it with my brother, 46 years old, when he died. Something I'll never get over. My aunt died of cancer as well, but she was in her late 70s, and she was yanked back from the edge at Sloan Kettering Hospital in 1991, and she then lasted, and she was free of cancer till 2003, and then it came back and galloped very quickly. And her doctor said to me that often when it comes back, it gallops and you die very quickly. But she was a good age. My brother was 46. And so I fully understand the feelings of William and Catherine and their children, because you do have to look various possibilities in the face, and it jolts you to the core. So Minnie Me says, Lady C, I saw your comment about Trevor Coult on his channel. Very gracious of you, if I may say. Why do you think he did the video? I think he did the video to counteract the crazy stories that are being put out about anyone who is pro the royal family. Do you agree? Mini-me, to those of you who don't know, is referring to a video that Trevor Coult, who is a war hero, put out about me. It's not very long. It was brought to my attention. And he's basically addressing the fact that so many crazy stories are out there. And he then said that he had been told by his connections that I have very good connections, and that I'm reliable and trustworthy, and a lot of the other people aren't, which was very nice to hear. he said that he was told that I had very good connections at the palace and various different connections. I will make the point, I don't only function on that level. I have friends, some of whom are royal, others of whom have been part of the royal circles for decades. So, and he did make the point that I am measured, and I suppose he did it because he is concerned as that because he's a firm royalist, that some of the crazy, bizarre stories are getting worse. And I mean, I try to avoid dipping my toe in any of that sort of mainstream muck or alternative muck. But it was brought to my attention, and yes, I did post something on his channel about, I gave a positive comment because he evidently was rude about me when the Queen died. And he has understood now why I said what I said. And because at the time he was very rude about me. But what can I tell you? His reaction was heartfelt and was from a good place. And life is too short to hold up to malice people whose intentions were basically positive. So I have obviously forgiven him. And why wouldn't I? I mean, he wasn't being malicious. And I have to tell you, just being a little bit naughty, the friend who alerted me to the existence of the video fancies him something rotten and would love him to jump out from beyond the camera and take full advantage of my friend's existence. And he also, it was really rather sweet, rather like how Andy Signor got all dressed up to interview me. He got all dressed up in black tie, the full tux, and looks rather dashing as well. So I hope that answers that question. To those of you who want to go and look, please feel free. His name is Trevor Coult, and I wouldn't recommend reading all of the comments. Some of them are really rather nasty, although some are nice. But there we go. We live in a world where if you believe in freedom of speech, you have to take the rough with the smooth. And I believe in freedom of speech. Melinda Riddle says, Tom Bradby backed the wrong brother. Hope he enjoys Siberia. Melinda Riddle, I've got news for you. Tom Bradby, as a journalist, might not have backed the wrong brother at all. Because if he is ruthlessly ambitious, by backing Harry against William, he made the right choice because he is the chief newscaster, if I'm not mistaken. I never look at television, by the way, or very seldom, at ITV. ITV's CEO is someone called Dame Caroline McCall, who wears Meganian and Herodian brown lipstick, the like of which you have never seen. was happy to dismiss her chief star, constructively dismiss, I should say, which is a proper legal term, the chief presenter of ITV, Piers Morgan, to facilitate Meg's baby, and he will flourish even when William is king. And I'll tell you why he'll flourish. Because elements of the mainstream media, including ITV, but there are many other elements, demand to assert their independence by being hostile. So you think he backed the wrong brother and you hope he enjoys Siberia? It seems to me as if he's sunning himself at the Hotel du Cap in Cap d'Antibes under the umbrella that has been purchased for him by Dame Caroline McCall. So I'm not so sure he actually chose the wrong brother. If it's all about professional ambition and doesn't matter how he gets there. I know that William doesn't take a very charitable view of Tom Bradby, but I leave it at that because I have friends who are friends with Tom Bradby. Parakeet Floor says, attempting to contact and influence children when their parents have made clear such contact is unwanted is something usually done by predators. It's also done by the mentally disturbed, by the abusive, by the provocative, by the nasty. I certainly would be outraged if a sibling of mine publicly stated that they were keeping a door open to straighten out my children and welcome them so that they, my children, would have the benefit of being patched back up together by a sibling to whom I wasn't speaking. I would regard that as a violation of the most gross kind. Yes, Harry did it. And yes, it's a violation insofar as many right-thinking people are concerned. It also shows how amoral he has been and how careless he has been of his brother and sister-in-law's sentiments, and how he regards himself as the be-all and end-all, and has therefore given a message that is egotistical in the extreme, abusive in the extreme, rather predatory in tone, disrespectful to the nth degree. And what he has rarely said is, well, I'm post-royal. Let me rephrase. I'm post-royal. I've seen the light. The light is to decamp to California. Sell your family and yourself and your institution out for filthy lucre. and I'm willing to encourage my nephews and niece to do the same thing. Well, of course, if they're out of the line of succession, who's in it? Who's the next one in the line of succession? Uncle Harry and Aunt Meg's baby, King Henry the Ninth, Queen Meghan the First, the first oik. But you see, it does have a certain rationale, because if he managed to undermine those three children and encourage them to step out of the line of succession, because after being royal is a terrible thing, but when they're out of the line of succession, he would be in there like Flynn, and so would she. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay? Thank you so much. Take good care. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye. And as promised, I am going to share today and every other day for the next week or two the blurb about Kids Out, and also show you how, if you would wish to make a contribution, you can. I have been happy to make a contribution. It is a genuine charity. It has a charity number registered with the charity commissioners, and I think it's a wonderful cause. So God bless you. Bye-bye.